It's officially Olympic season. Pierre, Kyle, Dan, and the Toronto Maple Leafs go into the Olympic break 6 points out of a playoff spot. Pierre, last week he said if you are double digits at it's usually the All Star break, away from a playoff spot, it's curtains. But the Toronto Maple Leafs are not double digits out of a playoff spot.
You are correct, sir, and great to visit with you and Kyle, Dan. The truth of the matter is Toronto showed a lot on that road trip. I know it's not as good as what it used to be in Vancouver and Calgary in particular, but the way the trip started in Seattle and the way it finished in Edmonton, apple and orange. They deserve a ton of credit. They reeled that trip in by winning in Vancouver, winning in Calgary, and really winning big time in Edmonton. I got a lot of respect for what the Leafs are doing right now. Their players should be excited about their post-Olympic games, and I think they got a legitimate chance, much like Ottawa, to get into the playoff run. I really believe that.
Pierre, 6 points back with 4 or 5 teams to leap over somehow to get into that final playoff spot. All the talk leading into this was, is this team a seller? Is this team a buyer? Should they dump and reset everything? But now, because they are still within striking distance of a run to the playoffs, how does that change the narrative around what this team should do moving forward?
They got to add pieces that are going to help them get into the playoffs. I don't think there's that much to sell, anyways. I mean, maybe you look at Morgan Riley, but they just won in Edmonton without Morgan Riley. I'm not saying that's a long term solution, but they did prove that they can win without Morgan Riley in the lineup. I think they got to look at how they can add. They need to add a right shot defenseman. They need to try to add a quarterback on the power play. They need to add a top six winger. Those are three big asks. But if they could ever do that or add two of the three, I think they'd give themselves a real legitimate chance to make it. And by the way, we were all kind of down on Anthony Stolarz. Anthony Stolarz in Edmonton, that save against Leon Draisaitl near the end of the game, you think about that for 1 second. That's how you got to play. He rolled around in the mud. He got dirty. He saved his team's butt. And that's the way they got to have him playing the rest of the season.
And that was probably to be expected after the amount of time he missed for him to get back into form.
Totally agreed, Dan. I didn't like the fact that they started him in that Mitch Marner return against Vegas. I don't know why they did that, but they did do that. He didn't look very good in that game, but you're spot on. He needed to get some more reps. He's got those reps now, and he's playing really well.
So with his return to form in the net, I mean, they've got two goaltenders that have played pretty well. If Stolarz has gone there, it seems like the pieces could be in place. So why can't this team stay consistent, Pierre?
They don't move the puck real well out of their own zone, number one. So they're an easier team to forecheck. They spend way too much time in their own zone. They don't have a legitimate power play quarterback, even though the power play's been better of late. And I just think there's a physical dimension to their team missing in their top six, probably a pure score. And I don't want to keep bringing up Marner, but Marner's missing. Last year, that team, by the way, with Mitch Marner on it, they finished first in the Atlantic Division. 5 teams from the Atlantic Division made the playoffs last year, and Toronto finished first in the division. So they missed that player. You can say whatever you want about them in the playoffs, but they missed that player. And so they got to find a top six forward. They got to find a power play quarterback. They got to find a defenseman on the right side.
Can you have the talk with professional athletes and maybe sugarcoat it a bit better than this and say, hey, guys, why don't you just pretend that you care? Because a lot of times you can watch a Leaf game and say, do they even care out there? While you watch another team like the Avs and you're like, I don't want to play against any of those lines because these guys are making it hell to be out there.
I think there was a crisis of confidence with the Toronto Maple Leafs with the way their season started. I think most guys understood not having Marner was a big problem. Not having the same defense and the power play was a big problem. And I think they realized when Stolarz went down, they didn't have the same goaltending. So I think there was a crisis of confidence with this group. It's not that they didn't care. I think they just lost their way. They lost their identity. They're starting to reel it in. After that Seattle game when they lost, they could have pouted and moped and cried and not produced. It could have lost in Vancouver, could have lost in Calgary, and could have got blown out in Edmonton. All that is not true. They ended up going and winning all 3 of those games. So I think they're starting to get their mojo back. And 6 points is not 10 points. They understand they got a legitimate chance to make it. Now they do have to have their give a poop meter rise to the level of expectation. I think they will coming back from the break.
So under the assumption that they are in fact buyers at the deadline, whether or not they can get anything, if they fail to make the playoffs in this last push, how much can we expect this team to change in the offseason given the performance this year?
A lot. It better change because you can't come back with the same group. Everybody talked about what happened after the Florida series last year. This is way worse. This is way worse. So you're going to have to do some serious soul searching as an ownership group, as an upper management group, as a coaching staff, and obviously as a scouting staff. They're going to have a lot of things they're going to have to answer to if they don't make the playoffs this year.
Looking at their schedule, ooh, they played the Senators the third game into when they returned.
That's correct.
That's gonna be a sweet test.
Ottawa's coming on hard, boy. They played a virtuoso game. I know they only won in overtime 2-1 against Philly last night, but I'm telling you right now, they were really good. And they were really good the previous game when they played in Carolina. They held Carolina 18 shots. They went into Pittsburgh. They held Pittsburgh to 16 shots. Dan and Kyle, I can tell you right now, Ottawa's playing as well as they've played all year. And Timmy Stützle has gone to star status in the league. He is a superstar player in the league. So that's going to be a heck of a battle on the 28th, I believe it is. Yeah, the 28th of February between Ottawa and Toronto.
Well, our friend Todd Furman said you might want to put some dineros on Stützle to be the leading scorer at the Olympics.
If he plays with Draisaitl, he's going to have a very real opportunity to do that because I don't know how serious people are going to be playing against the Germans because it's going to be one of those quote-unquote throwaway games where you're just using it to get ready for the medal round. But if that's the case, and Timmy could, especially playing with Leon Draisaitl.
Pierre, the Toronto Maple Leafs are sending 3 players to the Olympics. Of course, Austin Matthews, William Nylander, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. The fact that only 3 of their roster players are going there probably bodes well for the rest and the reset a lot of this roster could use at this point of the season.
Dan, Kyle just hit the ball right out of the park. He nailed it. And that's absolutely true. I think there's a lot to that. If you look at last year, a team like Vegas that had so many players that went to the Four Nations event, they had a hard time getting it back on the track. If you look at any of the teams that had it, the only one that really did well was Florida. And the reason why they did well with Florida is their goalie didn't go because the Russians weren't allowed to go, and the goalie made a big difference for them when they obviously played in the playoffs. And I think Toronto to this day still should have won that series had they would have kept Anthony Stolar. So there's a lot of merit to what you're saying. I do think there's something to that. I really believe that.
Here's what I'm looking forward to is the amount of excitement and investment that people are about to make in these Olympics because we didn't realize what we missed until the Four Nations Cup, and that caught everyone by surprise.
Yeah.
Every person I talked to said, I didn't think I'd watch any of it, and I didn't miss a second. We are on the verge of a moment that no one probably expects or predicts with this Team Canada team and the names that are on this roster all together for the first time.
Spot on. I haven't been very mad at the National Hockey League in my 37 years being in the league, but I was really mad after the 2014 gold medal game in Sochi where Canada absolutely dominated Sweden. I was walking back to the hotel with Doc Emmerich, and somebody from the National Hockey League grabbed me and said, probably not going to be bringing NHL players to Korea. I was like, what? Why? And they said, oh, it's travel, it's this, it's that. I'm like, really? And then all of a sudden you get to 2015 and you really start to hear the noise. Then you get to 2016, and you're like, they're not going. You're like, what? Why would you do that? 98 was good, even though it was in Japan because of the time zones. 2002 was off the charts, especially if you were Canadian. 06 was not great, but if you were Sweden, Finland, it was awesome. 10 was magical. 10 was magical. You and I had the privilege of being there and working. And 14 was crazy good, especially if you're Canadian. It was unbelievable. So you're looking at this going, how could they not go? It's the only time I can honestly tell you in my career, it's like, what's the NHL thinking? And now they realize the error of their ways, and they got these guys back in. And one thing that nobody talks about, you guys, the chip in the game and the collective bargaining, you know, we have labor harmony now. The chip in the game was all the star players putting pressure on the PA saying, you get us back to the Olympics and we'll start talking about collective bargaining. And that was one of the big chips in the game that got this thing back on the track.
You know, it's going to make everyone's heads explode when they put out a video game version of Canada's power play at one point, and you're like, they did it. They did it.
Yeah.
You
Pierre,
are so right.
And Pierre, further to your point on all of this, with hockey as a sport in general, setting, of course, soccer slash football proper to the side for a moment, hockey has the longest history of best on best competition. Basketball only started in the Olympics a couple of decades ago. Baseball
92.
just started
Yeah,
it with the World
yeah,
Baseball Classic.
yeah.
Football can't do it because it's exclusive to Canada and the US. So really, this is an important exhibition for the game if it's to grow globally, and even within North America, where there's so much room for growth. Best on best is hockey sitting just under soccer.
Spot on. I can't add any more to that. I think it's great. And I say there's all due respect to people in Ukraine and people in Russia. The only thing we're missing are the Russian players. They don't fight wars. Their politicians fight the war. So, I mean, no disrespect meant to the Ukrainians. My grandfather is of Ukraine heritage. So I'm just going to throw it out there. We do have best on best. We're just missing one group. We're missing the Russians.
Any updates on Team Canada that we should know about?
I'm a little surprised. No disrespect meant either. Anybody that makes a team is great. So I'm happy for Seth Jarvis. There's obviously a sense of familiarity with him going to replace Braden Point. But I just go back to 2014 and I think about Chris Kunitz playing with Sidney Crosby, and everybody in Canada was shocked that Kunitz was on the team. But then when you go watch and you debrief the tournament, Kunitz made a huge difference playing with Crosby. So I'm really surprised Zach Hyman from Edmonton didn't get the call to play because of his relationship and chemistry with Connor McDavid. But I'm happy for Seth Jarvis. It's not a knock on him. I just thought Hockey Canada would go down the Zach Hyman road.
How about on the women's side, Pierre? Obviously, the game against Finland being canceled and rescheduled. What are you seeing from the Canadian women so far? Because I'll tell you what I've seen so far. I follow a lot of them on social media. They're a relaxed bunch having a ton of fun together over there, and it's just so charming to see how they're folding right into the Olympic experience as a unit and as individuals.
And they have such a great leader in Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Yes.
And I know her very well. I really admire her. I respect her a ton as a player and as a person. She is the ultimate. She is the female Jean Beliveau for women. I'm telling you, she's that nice a person. She's amazing, and she's a great athlete. Um, I think Canada's going to be really good. Obviously, I think most Canadians feel the same way. I'm worried about when they have to play the Americans, and this is my only cause for concern. I watched the Americans play Czechia yesterday. And what blew me away, I've never seen this in all my years covering women and working with women at hockey camps and everything else. The transition game of the Americans is off the charts because of the tempo and the pace that they have on their back end. So they're going to be a hard team to forecheck. So if Canada can't get more than 20 to 25 shots on goal, I have a hard time believing they're going to win. And yesterday, I think Czechia had 14 shots on net, and I'm going to say 8 of those were on the power play. So the Americans are going to be hard. You're going to have to come up with a forecheck game if you're Canada. But I think Canada's the only team that can beat them, Kyle and Dan. I really do.
They're studying the tape. Don't worry about it, Pierre. 1 degree of Pierre Maguire. I point to a card. He tells us his connection to this player. I don't think I've ever gone way over here. We got Marty McSorley.
Oh, boy. So many. No, that's good. I mean, Marty started, people forget this. Marty was an undrafted player that started with the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then he ends up going to Edmonton. People forget that Marty was one tough son of a gun. Obviously, everybody knows that. I got to know Marty a little bit more when he was in LA. And obviously respect him a ton as a player. And then when he was doing some TV work, I spent some time around him too. But Marty was tough. I actually played in an exhibition game, Philly versus New Jersey, and his brother was playing for Philadelphia, and his brother was as tough as Marty was. He was a tough guy. So the McSorleys are pretty tough people.
The hands like baseball mitts.
Yeah, pretty big mittens. Yes, sir. Very big.
Concrete baseball mitts too.
Pierre, we're going to let you go, but any thoughts on Buck Martinez announces retirement?
Really surprised. What an icon. I know a proud son of the state of New Jersey, obviously a great baseball player, an unbelievable broadcaster. And I always admired people that have passion to do their jobs. And Buck's passion to broadcast the Toronto Blue Jays blew me away. I had a chance to meet him 2 or 3 times when I was living in Toronto and working with you at TSN, and always thought the world of the opportunities to meet him, and obviously Rod Black at different times. So think the world of Buck, and I wish him the best in retirement. So yeah, no, that's a tough piece of news to get today.
Yeah. Thanks, Pierre.
Great visiting with you, Dan. Kyle, take care. Talk to you guys soon.
Talk soon.
So that was the big announcement. Buck Martinez putting a big statement out on social media and calling it a career. He's dealt with health issues, and maybe because he had to miss time the last few seasons, and I figure he just doesn't have it in the tank and enjoy retirement.
Yeah, I agree with you too, Dan. I think what's happened here is we're seeing someone reprioritizing their life to what matters. He wants to spend time with his wife. He wants to enjoy his life and enjoy time off. And the way the Jays are now, their schedule is much more hectic. I have two very, very distinct memories of Buck Martinez from his playing career, not his cancer battle and his broadcasting career. One, he's the first person that taught me the valuable relationship between a pet kid, between a back catcher and a pitcher. Of course, when he was a battery with Dave Steeb, that was something I always remember. I really understood it then as a young ball player trying to pitch and stuff. I got it. And number two was, of course, when he received the return throw from George Bell with a broken leg and completed the 9-2-7-2 double play. That's warrior stuff, Dan. And it was no surprise to me to see how he battled through his health problems after witnessing that early on in his career.
He was on the Blue Jays teams when I fell in love with the game when I was a kid. So I'll remember from him from that. And I've told this story before, but when I was a young broadcaster and I somehow finagled a media pass to go cover the Jays, I was working in Fort McMurray, but I was back home to see my family. I'm like, I'm gonna go to a Jays game, get a media pass. I got it. I go up to Buck. I see him on the field. I say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" He's like, "Sorry, kid. I got a bunch of TV stuff to do." And I'm like, "Oh, that shucks. Oh, darn."
And speaking
So,
of the TV, sorry, Dan, go ahead,
oh
please.
no. So he goes on, does his TV stuff. I go up to the media booth, and I'm just wandering around, finding out where the hell to sit up there. And out of nowhere, Buck comes up to me and says, "Sorry, kid. I had to do the TV stuff. I really would have liked to spend some time with you, but that's a busy time." And I'm like, "Oh, no, no problem." So I remember that for my entire career that I was a nobody. And he took the time to come up to me and say, "Sorry, I couldn't do that interview." He didn't have to do that, but that is Buck Martinez in a nutshell.
And given what you ended up doing with your career and whatnot, Dan, what a remarkable lesson it is in how to treat people that you come across in the field and whatnot. And just,
Well,
you know,
that's in life. Don't be a
in life,
dick.
yeah, yeah. Just don't be a dick. It's Buck Martinez. Don't be a dick. It should say that
Yeah.
right on his biography on Wikipedia. And the thing is, too, even just from a broadcasting point of view, good luck to whoever's got to replace that silky smooth voice. He is
Well, it'll be
truly
Joe
fantastic.
Siddle, who I have a ton of time for. I think he's great at his
Yeah,
job, but it's like when Pope John Paul died, we had the buffer pope. He takes the brunt of it, and then you bring in all the popes after. You're like, he's fine. But
yeah.
anyone who comes in after a legend, it's you're gonna get some backlash. But people just give it time. Look what Joe Davis did in LA, takes over for Vin Scully, and now he's beloved. So just realize it's going to be a person that's completely different broadcaster, completely different voice. Just give them time.
He will be missed from a lot of angles for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy the opening ceremonies. They're today.
Can't wait.